Alright, assignment help with Dolores Huerta biography. So we're going to click on this first link here. Bring us to a reading, which I'm going to do with you guys. So Dolores Huerta, still alive today, born in 1930, was co-founder of the United Farm Workers Association. Dolores Carla Fernandez Huerta is one of the most influential labor activists of the 20th century and a leader of the Chicano civil rights movement. Born on April 10, 1930 in Dawson, New Mexico, Huerta was the second of three children of Alicia and Juan Fernandez, a farm worker and miner who became a state legislator in 1938. Her parents divorced when Huerta was 3 years old, and her mother moved to Stockton, California with her children. Huerta's grandfather helped raise Huerta and her two brothers while her mother struggled jobs as a waitress and cannery worker until she could buy a small hotel and restaurant. Alicia's community activism and compassionate treatment of workers greatly influenced her daughter. Discrimination also helped shape Huerta. A school teacher prejudiced against Hispanics accused Huerta of cheating because her papers were too well written. In 1945, at the end of World War II, white men brutally beat her brother for wearing a zoot suit, a popular Latino fashion. Huerta received an associate teaching degree from the University of the Pacific's Delta College. She married Ralph Head while a student and had two daughters, though the couple soon divorced. She subsequently married fellow activist Ventura Huerta, with whom she had 5 children, though that marriage also did not last. Huerta briefly taught school in the 1950s, but seeing so many hungry farm children coming to school, she thought she could do more to help them by organizing farmers and farm workers. In 1955, Huerta began her career as an activist when she co-founded the Stockton chapter of the Community Service Organization, CSO, which led voter registration drives and fought for economic improvements for Hispanics. She also founded the Agricultural Workers Association. Through a CSO associate, Huerta met activist Cesar Chavez, with whom she shared an interest in organizing farm workers. In 1962, Huerta and Chavez founded the National Farm Workers Association, the NFWA, the predecessor of the United Farmers Workers Union, UFW, which formed 3 years later. Huerta served as UFW vice president until 1999. Despite ethnic and gender bias, Huerta helped organize the 1965 Delano strike of 5,000 grape workers and was the lead negotiator in the workers' contract that followed. Throughout her work with the UFW, Huerta organized workers, negotiated contracts, advocated for safer working conditions, including the elimination of harmful pesticides. She also fought for unemployment and health care benefits for agricultural workers. Huerta was the driving force behind the nationwide table grape boycotts in the late 1960s that led to a successful union contract by 1970s. In 1973, Huerta led another consumer boycott of grapes that resulted in the groundbreaking California Agricultural Labor Relations Act of 1975, which allowed farm workers to form unions and bargain for better wages and conditions. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, Huerta worked as a lobbyist to improve workers' legislative representation. During the 1990s and 2000s, she worked to elect more Latinos and women to political office and has championed women's issues. The recipient of many honors, Huerta received the Eleanor Roosevelt Human Rights Award in 1998 and the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2012. As of 2015, she was a board member of the Feminist Majority Foundation, the Secretary-Treasurer Emeritus of the United Farm Workers of America, and the President of the Dolores Huerta Foundation. Alright, so what problems is she attempting to address? Workers' rights, poor people's living and working conditions, poor children, and women's role in politics. What solutions? Have poor workers join unions where they can be represented, increased wages, health care, and improved working conditions, strikes and boycotts, encourage women to run for political office. Now you have a couple of videos here. So you're going to click on this. The intersectionality video is 2 minutes long. So you're going to play that. 2 minutes and 26 seconds long. Watch that. It's quick. And Huerta wanted to organize farm workers to fight for their better worker and wages, and she was also attempting to address discrimination against all people. solutions does Huerta offer to solve this issue? Take advantage of the revolution climate and encourage Chicano farm workers to join the movement, and argue that discrimination is interconnected across the board, meaning that it kind of affects everybody. Alright, and then unite and work with other oppressed groups. So, you're going to click on this link again, and it's going to bring you to the same screen that we were just on. Instead of watching the intersectionality and making of the movement, you are going to click on environmental justice. And once you click on environmental justice, there's a 2.5-minute video you're gonna watch. So what is she focused on in this video? Working conditions, workers expose pesticides and quality of your food, eating poison because of the pesticides. Bring attention to the dangers of pesticides to both the workers and consumers, and put pressure on the owners of the companies and government to ban certain pesticides. Alright. Document 4 is going to bring us back to that same screen. We're going to watch the third video of Dolores Huerta, and you're going to come down here and click on this movement. You're going to click about 3 minutes long. Give you a lot more good information on Huerta. Okay. And what is she fighting for here? She's fighting for equal treatment for women of color having a voice in the feminist movement, abortion rights. What solutions does she offer to solve these issues? She wants to organize women, give women of color a voice in the movement, and convince Chicano women that there is a path to feminism while still being a faithful Catholic. And then the final one is no plans to retire. You're going to click on that. This is an article written a couple of years ago. All right. And it says, yeah, sure. I don't know why I had to do that to read this article. I didn't have to do it either. Yeah, okay. So, civil rights activist Dolores Huerta is 87. This was 3 years ago. She's now 90, and she has no plans to retire. So it writes, Dolores Huerta rose to prominence as an organizer, labor leader, and civil rights activist in California. In 1962, she and Cesar Chavez founded the National Farm Workers Association, now United Farm Workers, through which they led boycotts and negotiated better conditions and pay for farm workers. Huerta received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2012. And she writes, I was actually very shy as a child, but my mother was always pushing me to get out there and be active. So I got involved in a lot of organizations in our community. The Girl Scouts, a church club called the Aristas after St. Teresa, a club called Azul y Ora. We would sing at the hospital, do dances, and raise money, and then give out Christmas and Thanksgiving baskets. In high school, I organized a teen center. A lot of my friends were poor and didn't really have money to go places. We brought in a jukebox, table tennis, just trying to create a space where kids could come together and socialize. But the police shut us down. They didn't want the interracial. We were a very multi-ethnic group. We had white kids, African-American friends, and Asians, Filipinos, and Mexicans all together. All the time, I had been doing the social organizing and never able to do anything that I thought really changed things. But in college, one of my professors invited me to this house meeting with a man named Fred Ross. Mr. Ross was organizing the Community Service Organization, CSO. He showed us how they had brought streetlights and clinics into East Los Angeles, how they organized to get a Latino elected to the city council, how they had sent these police to prison for beating up Mexican Americans. That meeting transformed my life. I had to belong to that organization. I set up house meetings with registered voters, went to Sacramento to lobby. I became the legislative advocate and then political director. We took on all different issues with CSO, but the farm worker issue was the one that really got me. The fact that ordinary people, poor people, farm workers, had that power to make changes in the community. Both Cesar Chavez and I wanted to organize a farm workers union, and the CSO didn't support that, so we left CSO. Talk about a big moment. I'm going through a divorce. My second husband was not very supportive of the work I was doing. I had 7 kids by then. And then I make a decision to go to Delano to start the union with Cesar, leave including a job with stable income and not knowing literally where our next meal was coming from. The only thing that worried me was my kids, because I had a wonderful middle-class upbringing, music lessons, dance lessons, able to go to the movies and all that. And my kids, we had really come down to the poverty level of the farm workers. Caesar's wife, her sister, would go down to the food bank and get the beans and rice, oatmeal and cornmeal so that we could eat. But the end result inspires you. I'm 87 years old. People say, why don't you retire? Well, if I can reach more people and get them involved in organizing to make a change in their life, I think that's worth every single additional year that I can live. All right, so we're going back. Problems she's attempting to address: workers' rights, voting rights, and things for kids to do. What solutions? Advocate for workers in the union and to government officials, registered people to vote and encouraged Latinos to run for office, and started a youth center as a teen. I hope this assignment explanation helped you.